Right, that's the team tune. Good evening. Welcome along, everybody. Great to see you all there. Starting to light up the chat there. Shawnee Lawson, Master of the Disaster, Owen Conway, Dave Lennon, Dan Bailey, Dave Pritchard. He's in the house as well. Anybody else wants to come along, I'll give you a shout out. I think I'll do a shout out. I think it's going to be like a radio show. Shout out to all the people there listening and watching there out there in the houses and then stuck in lockdowns and on, getting the vaccinations and having the drinks with us. Right, tonight on the forum, we're getting over I think the word that they used, like in a responsible manner, is absolute ball sack of a clusterfuck at the weekend. We're going to try have a look at what's going down, but beside me, on my right, is Neil Gray. Down below me is Ray Dickinson.
All right, lads.
And down there is Jesus. This is like doing reverses. Is Pete again? Pete all the way from Barcelona in his closet. Someday Pete's going to come out of his closet and he's going to surprise the world. Anyway, that's what it is. Of course, we have Neilo in. We have Ray Dicko coming from his shed. Neilo is coming from his cell in Mountjoy, and bringing in many other things he did from on his phone. So it's all good. There's Loranger is in as well. Mohammed Farouk. No, Andy. That's right. Andy is grounded tonight. He's not allowed out to play. He's off working out my theories on the simulation. Right, tonight, lads, we're going to be looking at the bigger picture. We're going to be looking at the smaller picture, which they don't use that well. We're going to be looking at other things that Ray and the lads had it, and we're also going to be talking about something
the L triangle goes jingle jangle.
The L triangle, that does indeed go jingle jangle. I better keep up the yoke here. And then we're going to be having a look at the media, talking about the bigger picture and the little picture and what they like to do with all the pictures, because they love the pictures. Right, yes, Master of Disaster Andy is on John Henry's yacht. I've managed to get him a little trip around Howth for his birthday, which was his 40th birthday 2 weeks ago. So it's definitely is my little birthday.
Still going on about that fucking birthday, fuck's sake.
Yeah, he's taking pictures of live from the yacht in the chaplain's room. Right, lads, first topic up tonight is my topic, and it is the impact of this season. Right, I want to talk to you about the impact of this season because, and it's really important that we talk about this. The most important thing here is when people talk about this in general, on the back of what's going on, an awful lot of this is let's just write off the season and we go again next year. Right, let's just write off the season, we go again next year. Now, I don't think I'm not at one extreme or the other, but I think you can't just write off the season. You can't just say fuck it, let's not qualify for anything and we'll just finish 8th or something like that. We aren't going to lose masses of bodies, but we do need to recycle this team. And where we finish is going to have a massive impact as to what we can do next season. And Ray, you put an interesting thing in the chat with the lads earlier on about what the points left in this squad is. If, for example, we weren't to sign anybody in the summer and we just had to go with a fully fit squad. So, go on, I'll let you give me your take on where we are as a squad and a team in the current situation with the manager and the players we have, ignoring that we sign anyone. So just the current squad I want to work off of.
Yeah, because, I mean, if you go by our recent windows, there's no splash signing coming along in the summer. And, you know, based on the business model that FSG have been operating, like, how can we expect us spending, you know, even 50, 60 million in the transfer window? We already know that City have got 200 million. Funny enough, they promised Pep 200 million when things were looking a bit shaky earlier on in the season for City. So I guess Pep will still expect to be able to spend that money and reinforce in the summer. So with that happening, and as you say, Phil, us basing our assessment on the squad that we've got right now, you know, my view on this is that, okay, we've had the injuries, we've had a lot of bad luck, we've had COVID, we've had no crowds. A lot of things have gone against us this season, and we're going to end up with a points tally that no one would have imagined, I guess, at the end of the season because of all of that. But even with a fully fit squad now, and with these players where they're at, with key players like Firmino, who seems to have gone into terminal decline, you know, I think our range next season is 80 to 90. And realistically, I think City have got a range, especially with these reinforcements, of 90 to 100 again. So unless FSG, unless Klopp, you know, a combination of FSG investing and Klopp finding and identifying the players to spend that money wisely with, I think we're still going to be looking at a gap of about 10 points to City next season, unfortunately. And it might be that we absolutely nail second or third place, no problem, and we're not in this mess that we're in now, where we're trying to struggle for fourth place, and it's starting to look like a distant target every week, game by game. But yeah, I think it's dawned on me really that over the last couple of games in particular, that even if this injury situation clears up, that we found ourselves behind Man City all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm. Pete, you've been critical of FSG on this pod over the last 2 or 3 occasions. So I'm putting it to you that when I'm talking about the impact of this season, the last time to get us over the hill, and I'm talking about winning the Champions League, consolidating our top 4 position, and then winning a league title. Across 3 transfer windows, they signed Salah, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Van Dijk, Fabinho, Alisson, Keita, and Shaqiri. Okay? So now I get people's complaints and moans about them not spending while we were on top. But with this summer ahead of us and looking at what we've done, is it not fair to expect that they are prepared to put their hands in their pockets in the same manner as they did to get us over the hump the last time?
I think you were dealing with extraordinary circumstances, and you're right. I have been critical. I haven't been critical. I'm a little bit different. I don't expect 300 million to be spent on players at Liverpool. I just don't expect that. I mean, I'm grateful that we have owners that are responsible and that are looking to balance the books. However, I would have expected, and Andy will probably kill me for this if he's listening in from somewhere, I would expect a contingency plan based on disaster recovery. I mean, everyone knows that it's not like coronavirus. Coronavirus has been around for a year. We knew what the consequences were going to be, empty stadiums. I would expect people that own an empire as vast as the FSG shareholders own, I would expect them to build a contingency and even to dig into their own pockets and say, okay, we need to build a contingency that's worth 80 or 90 million to get us. I mean, considering the injury situation, considering the lack of depth. I mean, if you look at Roberto Firmino, I don't think he's disimproved as a player. I think the guy is just bollocksed, to be honest with you. He's knocking on the door for 30 and he has no competition. It's a combination of both of those factors for him, and the goals have dried up. I think that Mohamed Salah carrying us, to be quite honest with you, with his goals. When he doesn't contribute, we don't function. So yeah, Phil, I would expect a contingency. And sometimes, they say in business, speculate to accumulate. And to be fair, it's not as if crowds won't come back now in September. They know it's not like they're throwing 60, 70 million out the window. They know they're going to get it back. And what's disappointed me, and like I said 2 weeks ago, is to have to wait, for the last minute for them to replace a centre half that we don't have. That should have been Jan 1 stuff, to be honest with you. And then looking at Bobby's situation, saying, okay, we need to give him a kick in the arse and give him a rest at the same time, and help Salah and Mane out with the goal situation. For me, it's reactionary stuff. And my line is FSG, fantastic. They've balanced the books. They've made a strong, word perspective as well, to be honest.
Yeah. Neilo, for you, what is the impact of massive failure that this season is? And
hold on, whoa. That's a massive failure. That's your opinion, right?
Okay.
Yeah, who's to say it's a massive failure? The season isn't over yet.
Nothing
has been decided. Yeah, but you can't say it's a massive failure this season when nothing has been finalised yet.
Okay.
By our standards.
To say, to think what, I kind of agree somewhat what Peter was saying, to achieve what we achieved with kind of a small group of players and not to make that group bigger this year. The fatigue was obviously going to set in, and I agree with the Bobby thing as well, and it's fatigue it's kind of across the squad, and I think it was to be expected for the 2 seasons that they had previous. So to expect Liverpool just to challenge this year to be up at the top, I think it was a misnomer from the start, in my opinion. And to say, and then if you're talking about City spending 200 million and FSG may not spend any million, nobody knows that yet. I mean, they could spend a heap of money in the summer. This is just purely speculation. And I think it's a little bit of a shit the bed stuff before anything happens. So everybody just needs to calm down. Like, it's like we'll get top 4. I'd be fairly confident in that. And like, who says we have to win the league every year? It's silly. It took 30 years to win it the last time. All of a sudden, we have to win it every year now. It's silly.
I'll admit, Neilo, I had to clean the sheets today.
Yeah, well, it's near time. Because you shit
Neil,
there before Christmas.
Neil, I would say to you that you are basing that on sweet fuck all based on this season.
It's just like you're basing your argument on sweet fuck all as well.
I'm not really, because when I look at it, I'm saying we have gone now 12 games since Christmas, and we have won 2. Yeah, we've got 12 games left at the end of the season. At this rate, we will probably end up on 53 points.
50, yeah. All right, yeah.
We can't beat Brighton. We can't beat Burnley. We can't beat Newcastle. We can't beat West Brom. We can't beat anyone that basically doesn't come and attack us.
Well, I have to admit, they've got a shit at the minute, right? I mean, everybody can see that.
But you reckon we're going to get top 4? So to get top 4, we have to get about...
Listen, I said we're going to get top 4 based on absolutely no mathematics or looking at the table.
But this is my point. And the question here is, assuming that we don't get top 4, because we'll have to get at least 32 points from the remaining 39 on offer, which means we need to win at least 9 of the last 13 games, which will be an incredible run for this team to go on.
We have an extra one.
No, we've got 13 games left.
Okay, you
just
just said
points there. We need 32. We'll need about 32 points, which is 72. Because despite everyone going on, oh, this is a terrible season and points and everything is close, it's not, because most teams in second, third, and fourth position are generally in this point range at this point of the season every year. And normally somebody has run off at the top of the league. And I guess what? Somebody's run off at the top of the league this season.
Yeah, guess who it is?
It's Manchester City, and I've no issue. I've no issue with this. But I'm saying to you, to get into the Champions League, unless the bar is set lower than most years, so in the 60-point range, we are not getting into the top 4. And if we don't get into the top 4,
say the bar is set a little bit lower because this season is such an aberration and such a bag of shit. So
it's not an aberration. Not for points. It's not an aberration. That's a falseness that's out there and a myth. It's not an aberration.
It's a falsehood. There's no such word as falseness.
Anyway, I can make up words if I want. That's how words are invented.
Regardless, then I'm going to say. Regardless. It's that new word as well. Well, if we don't get in the top 4 as well, like why is there such a fucking panic? I really don't get it. Like this season, it's a big drop off this season.
That's the point of this question that I've posed to you.
Just the way it is. Like why is everybody panicking so much? Like maybe we'll be over the league next year. So fucking well, chances are we win the league next year.
There's about 17 answers to that question, Neil. There's about 17 answers to that question.
But Neil,
what is the big deal if we don't get top 4?
I'm more in your boat to think that it's not going to be anywhere near as bad as people think it's going to be if we get top 4. But we aren't going to be challenging for a title. You cannot expect us. You cannot expect us to be challenging for a title if we end up outside the top 4 this year, because the players that we could have attracted as Champions League club, we'll have to go a tier down. The same way as we went.
I don't agree with that. I don't think of that. These are professionals. Pay them enough money and they'll sign.
Yeah, but we're not going to, because their contracts are incentive laden. We have a different contract and a different incentive based system on our wages than other teams.
But you're contradicting yourself.
Yeah, but how come we attracted the best centre half in the world and the best goalkeeper in the world then when we needed them?
Because we're in the Champions League.
But we gave them loads of money, man.
But we were in the Champions League.
Yeah, but we gave them loads of money.
Clubs, hang on, let's be clear here. Chelsea were in for Alisson. Van Dijk, Manchester City were sniffing around Van Dijk, and Manchester United. Both of those clubs, I know Manchester United didn't make a solid offer in the end because unbelievably they went with Lindelof 6 months beforehand. But believe you me, that the financial offers to both of those players would have been better at other clubs. The key factor was the Klopp conversations and what he's going to build and what, because we don't pay. I mean, we're not huge payers. We're incentive payers as a club. We say what you're going to achieve, your riches are going to be based on that. When you don't have the opportunity to base those incentives on the Champions League, it changes things dramatically. So if you're, for example, if you're aiming at a player like, I'm spitballing here, Mbappe, you need to reset your sights to somebody a lot lower than. So it changes your expectations. That's what the panic is, Neil. And plus, you must remember, nobody, no matter what we're saying, nobody would have been factoring this. They would have thought, okay, at worst, we're going to sail into top four. We may not win the league, but all of if we have a short list of 5 players in each position, 3 or 4 of them would have been under the provided they would sign for the Champions League club. This would be, if we don't make top 4, I don't care what the comments are saying going across the screen. It's an unmitigated disaster because nobody would have planned not to. Simple.
Peter, I do value your opinion. Don't get me wrong. I do value your opinion, but I don't agree with it.
I think, I mean, the expectation is probably not just to qualify for the Champions League, but it's probably all based about getting out the group and getting into the knockout stages. I mean, I think United at one stage had everything based around qualifying as far as the quarterfinals because they were that consistent on getting there year in, year out. And I think the club's finances and everything associated with it will be based around getting to a certain stage in the Champions League. The Europa League will cost us a small fortune. Not being in Europe altogether will cost us even more. And you're right that the caliber of player that will suddenly want to come to for all the advantages of us not having these additional games, and I'm in this camp of almost, if we're not in the Champions League, we may as well not be in any European competition, just to kind of almost give ourselves.
To be honest with you, Ray, I worry the
Champions League next season.
Don't just worry about the players that won't sign. Don't just worry about the players that won't sign. Worry about the players who will want it. To be honest with you, that's my biggest concern. Is holding on to players. Because these guys,
Pete, I completely disagree with you here, right? Because I tell you one thing, and it's the same as what happened when Juventus got relegated in Italy, right? So many of those players want to right the wrong that happened in the season that's just gone, right? If you don't think there's going to be a massive amount of pride in those players, if they don't finish in the top 4, given what happened with Van Dijk, given what happened with Gomez, given what's happened with Henderson, with Firmino, and all that through the course of the season, we will get at least one more season out of the majority of that squad, right? Now, the only issue... Granted.
But tell me, what has Mohamed Salah done wrong? What has Mohamed Salah done wrong? What has he done wrong? But Pete, football is a team game. It's not based around... He will leave. Mohamed Salah will leave.
He won't leave. I'll tell you
if
what.
We don't get Champions League, he will go, and he'll be ready to go.
I'll tell you why he won't leave. Because one, he's too close to the end of his deal, and he'll net a huge deal if he hangs on for another season and get a much bigger wage packet. 2, Real Madrid don't have money to sign him. I thought we weren't paying
big wages.
3, Barcelona don't have the money to sign him. Right, so his natural landing points are very much limited in the pandemic season that we're dealing with. To be honest with you, the only teams that could potentially afford Salah is Manchester City and PSG, and PSG aren't going to sign him because they're going to go out to I'd say PSG might go after somebody like Mane, but I think there's a bigger chance that PSG might come in and give us 40 million quid for Firmino, because Firmino's shit, and I'd be letting him go.
Not shit.
Letting him go. The fella is done.
I just feel
as a Premier League footballer.
I feel Mohamed Salah has been so consistent, even this year, despite our crapness. He's the one delivering the goals.
I'm not
doubting that. I'm 29.
I'm not doubting that, but I go back to, if you take this squad of players and don't add anyone in the summer, right? Okay. Accepting that Wijnaldum's not going to be here next season. He's off, right? The reliability issues you're going to have, Matip and Keita aren't suddenly going to just disappear, right? So you're going to be hoping for, and then Milner's going to be 35 or 36 or whatever age he is in that squad, right? Which means that, okay, so you've got a front 3 potentially of Jota, Salah and Mane. You've got a middle 3 of Thiago, Jones, Henderson and Fabinho, because we're saying that at least you get a season then out of Van Dijk, Gomez, hopefully, and another centre-back. Now, I don't know, like, you say you take the option in Kabak or something like that, right? And Kabak and Matip are your 4 centre-backs that you have there. So you get a full season out your 3 of your centre-backs, plus then your 2 full-backs are Trent and Robertson with Alisson in goal, right? My argument here is, what's the points total in that squad? The discussion here is, what's the points total in that squad that we have at the moment, outside of worrying about what competitions you're in or whatever. And to me, that's a Champions League squad. That is a top 4 squad with those players, right? There's no excuses not to get top 4 in a normalised season with fans in the stadiums with that squad. The issue is that's your first 11. Once you go past that layer of players, you've got the replacements just aren't there. Right, the replacements just aren't there, and we're banking then on not having a significant injury crisis in the same way as we've had this season. And that, to me, is the biggest question mark we have over it. And the second biggest question mark, and this is where it goes back to the impact of this season, it's not even about transfers. Before you get into the FSG and the transfers and everything like this, and I'm sorry for barking on, but it is my topic. This is why I brought it up, is the next bit is the evolution of our team under Klopp. Since he's come in, it's been 4-3-3. It's been that three lads up front. He in terms of what it is, teams have figured us out, and I'm not having it that they haven't. You can't go on the run that we had up to Christmas and then look at what we're doing since then and not realise that the system isn't working at the moment. Okay, for a multitude of reasons, injuries and everything like that, but the system isn't working at the moment, and teams have figured out a way to nullify the threats of our fullbacks.
It's very simple, Phil. You can't have 65% of the ball and not score goals and not have been figured out. You're absolutely right. That's the thing.
Yeah, but surely the players that you have. Sorry. Surely the players that you have, like I'd agree with what you're saying there, Phil, believe it or not, surely the players that you have available to you dictate the tactics that you're going to use, right? So we're trying to play a style of football we've been playing that has got us to everywhere we needed to get to in the previous 2 seasons. But now we're trying to play with players who haven't got the ability or the tools to play that same style of play. So that kind of I know that's the way, the philosophy of the club, but it's still, though, it's a bit silly in my opinion. Do we not agree? No. Surely the players dictate the tactics and not the other way around.
I get you, and that to me is the biggest issue here, Neil, because the players that we have at the moment.
I think, to be honest,
no, go on, Pete. Finish off, because I think there's a good point here to be made around the issue that I have with Klopp. I think failings, it sits in there. I think the rest.
Yeah. No, I think, Phil, the rest of the Premier League, for example, Ralph Hasenhüttl, managers like that have figured us out. It's like watching boxing. They've kept us at arm's length. You know, if you don't let this fighter get on chin, you know, his left hook is not going to destroy you. Teams have figured us out. I'm not saying figured us out. We're still playing our pretty football. We're still keeping the ball, but it's just not effective in the final because teams have figured out how to do. So you need to.
That's easy for you to say, Peter.
I mean, I know it is. Yeah. Was there? I think, yeah.
I think the reception's gone down in the closet.
You know, it's painful to watch. Painful.
You need to put €1 in the meter.
Yeah. But can I just?
Maybe the gods don't want me talking.
No, but lads, this sort of goes on to the point I was going to make is that the biggest question mark I have around this run is Klopp himself. And this is not to get at him or have a go or say that he's not a good manager or he's failing miserably. But sometimes in the midst of a storm...
In fact, you just said it's not to say he's failing miserably. It means he's failing miserably.
It's not, Neil. It's not a way I just like to store. But to go back to your point, Neil, you said you play to the best of the players you have available, right?
Yeah.
That 4-3-3 is not playing to the strengths of the players we have available. And often you see in managers, when things happen like this, they stick to the system more so to what they believe in as opposed to the players they have, because it requires to believe more in the players than necessarily the system. And if I look at that team, we shouldn't be playing the style that we're playing at the moment because it's not delivering the chances or the opportunities that we need to do. And the only time we've changed
the system... Is that an arrogance, Phil?
No, I don't know. I think,
or is it an insecurity?
I don't even think it's an insecurity. I think it's a case that when you're in the midst of an absolute hurricane going on around you, that you revert back to what you truly believe in and truly understand, and that's your security blanket. As a manager, that's his security blanket. That's the way he set this team up. This team has been built to play a certain way, and this is what they've worked on in the training ground non-stop. Coach, right? But the 2 times recently that we've looked incredible is when he stepped away from the 4-3-3, put a diamond in midfield against Spurs and the diamond in midfield against Crystal Palace, and played to the strength of the players he has available. And I think, like, when we talk about releasing or getting the best out of Thiago, and then you look at the functional midfielders that he has around him and not necessarily the guys that are gifted, and then you keep looking at this thing about him. I know he's trying to play his best players at centre back, but fuck me, play 2 centre backs and put your best midfielders in midfield. Like this goes. Remember when Rafa was there and he was always sticking square pegs in round holes, and we weren't ever achieving what we thought we could achieve with the squad that was there. And you look at it and say, stop sticking midfielders in a centre back at this stage. You went out. I know they mightn't be the best, but Jesus, 2 centre backs playing at centre back and putting your best screen.
He doesn't trust.
That's the issue.
Yeah, I think this is snowballed because it kind of we were getting by initially with those kind of scenarios of having to play players out of position, and it started off with Fabinho like being absolutely brilliant and essentially being kind of Van Dijk-esque really, and then it just kind of gradually kind of turned into more injuries, and okay, well, we'll have to start playing Hendo at centre back now, and before you know it, he's sort of going further and further down this road of sticking to the system whilst just kind of gradually having to play more and more players where they're not naturally suited to play, and it just seems to have kind of it just seems to have gathered momentum, and it's even as fans, I think we've been fooled into thinking, well, look, we played well enough against the likes of West Brom to get the win, but it didn't happen. We played well enough against Newcastle to get a win, it didn't happen. We played, we started, I think, fooling ourselves into thinking that we were doing well enough to justify keeping at the same approach and methodology. And actually, if you kind of step back now and you look at all the games, we've actually got progressively worse, to the point where against Everton, I don't think we've been absolutely catastrophically bad, but we've not improved. We've actually got gradually worse to the point where one goal in 5 league games. I mean, we talk a lot about the defense, but the whole thing is just broken now in terms of,
to be honest with you, Ray,
got some. So, Pete.
Sorry, mate. Go ahead.
No,
how many games? I mean, I love Jordan Henderson. I love him. But how many games have we won with Jordan Henderson playing centre half? And don't get me wrong. Listen, I love the guy. He needs to be in the team no matter what. And it's not about him. But why break 2 areas of the field when one is broken? Why not play a centre half at centre half? I don't care if he's 19, 20. I don't care if he's not a fashionable name. At this stage, if you don't trust your squad, that's the squad you've built over 4 years.
I think it's because how important the 2 fullbacks are to the way we play. That's why Sanderson's in there, because the fullbacks are integral to how we play. It's nearly more important than almost more important than the centre of midfield. So I think that's why he reverts to Henderson as centre half.
To be honest with you, Ray, there's a part of me. This is going to sound absolutely ridiculous. That's relieved that Jordan Henderson's going to get rest, even though it's through injury, and not have to play centre back, because it seems to be flying over people's heads that we're not winning games with Jordan Henderson at centre back. We are not winning games with Jordan Henderson at centre. There's a multitude of reasons. I'm just tired of watching. Fabio is a one-off. It's a different type of player. He's more comfortable. That's a Rolls Royce type. You can read the game. Jordan Henderson not playing in midfield, and what you have with him playing centre back is just, for me, if something doesn't work twice and 3 times, you change it. This whole stubbornness. Sometimes Klopp reminds me of Arsene Wenger an awful lot. Wait, Arsene Wenger went down with the ship. It was like, this is my idea, and people actually forgot how intelligent that man was because of his, pardon my language, his fucking stubbornness. And I can see when Klopp going the same way. I know, listen, far be it for me to question a man that has achieved what Jurgen Klopp has achieved. But if something doesn't work, the basics of common sense in football should tell you, stop fucking doing it. You're destroying Jordan Henderson's season. Take him out of centre half, let him do what he does, and trust a young fella that you've signed and that you've put a squad number on his back. Let him play fucking centre half. It's gone. It's ridiculous at this stage.
But do you not think? Look, I want to move on from the topic and move on to the next one, which because we're leading naturally into this around the centre back bingo here that we're talking about, right? Like the fact is, I got why you put Hendo in there until we signed 2 lads on transfer deadline day. I got why he played him there so that they could bed in, and then they had a week to sit into the system and learn what was going on. I think Phillips hasn't put a foot wrong when he's played at centre back for us. He's not pretty, right? And he's not quick, But Jesus, there was, you have that dickhead Carragher in the media saying that he's gone that he wants Conor Cody to come and play for Liverpool. He's the ideal fella. And the shite that was talked by Carragher at the weekend and again on Monday Night Football was just baloney. Like the fellas, what drives me mad sometimes, these fellas try to go out of their way to show that they're not biased in their commentary, and they end up just looking like gimps when it comes to talk about this stuff. But
he was spitting on kids there a few fucking years ago. I don't mind him. He's
now, we won't go. We'll go down that route, Neilo.
Too late. I've already gone there.
But like for me, the problem I have is when I look at it, I'm saying, right, you got three fellas there. You've signed Davies, you've signed Kabak, and you have Phillips there, right? You're happy to put them in alongside a midfielder. How much worse could it be putting them inside another centre back? I know they're untested, but we've had 18 now centre back partnerships this season. We played 25 games, and on top of 18 different partnerships this season, we played 25 games.
Really crazy.
Why not just go with two of these fellas and say, right, we have an option here. Your man Davies, when he was being signed and they were talking about him, they said he's a very intelligent defender with good pace and can cover for the other centre backs. The one thing that both Kabak and Phillips look like they're missing is pace, right? So, and we know Williams seems to struggle with pace as well. So the only fella that's meant to be quick is Davies. And I get that it might be a long-term project, but we don't have time for a long-term project. It's sink or swim time.
Signing a long-term project, it was fucking madness. Yeah, absolute madness.
So who was right? Bingo was yours. Go on. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump on it, but go on.
That's okay. No, look, I'm now firmly of the belief that the way forward is to play two centre backs, and right now, based on what I've seen, I know Kabak had his shaky moments against Everton, but he put in a man of the match performance in the Leipzig game. I think it's time to give now that the injury curse has hit again. I think it's time for Kabak and Phillips to try and establish a partnership in the coming weeks, so that when Firmino and when Henderson come back, that they can go back into their natural positions in midfield and they can contribute exactly where we need them to contribute. Phillips, and there's loads of comments in the chat, Phillips hasn't put a foot wrong. He looks like, dare I say it without a curse striking, he looks an old-fashioned, durable centre-back, that can take a challenge. That can seriously, mix it up if he needs to mix it up. And I think, the thing we've got kind of in our favour now is we've got 3 very winnable Premier League games. We've got to take 9 points from the next 3, and then obviously in the middle of that you've got a Champions League game which we should manage through to qualify in for the next round. So there's 4 games where you can establish that partnership, and I hear shouts of Davis over Phillips. That I can only imagine that's born out of maybe some fear that Phillips has got a mistake in him, or there's no confidence in what people have seen in him deep down, because we haven't seen Davies yet. So I prefer to kind of go with what I've seen so far. And I think Davies, he might get his chance, and it might come through injury, because that's how most people's chances have come along this season. I mean, there's a super chat there. Phillips was all over the place for the second, lads. Yeah, look, I'm not saying he's perfect, but we've got to try and we've got to try and establish a centre-back pair. And I think, as you say, it's sink or swim time. The one thing for me, there's a lazy comparison that winds me up about Manchester City last season losing Laporte, but there's an element of truth. Obviously, they had to send Fernandinho back into centre-back because they couldn't really trust the other fella, Otamendi. And that weakened them in midfield, and we've been, we haven't learnt anything from that experience. And lo and behold, that as great as Diaz has been, there's Fernandinho at the weekend going back to his tactical fouls, breaking things up as Arsenal are breaking on Manchester City over the weekend. That's what they were missing last season, just as much as the fact that they didn't have Laporte at centre-back. So, we're missing so much out of Fabinho and Henderson not being there. So I'm absolutely we've lost so much ground let's try and establish a partnership for the next 4 games in those 2 lads. And if suddenly Davies emerges with Kabak at the weekend and that's the way he wants to go for the next 4 games, then so be it. But I want to see two centre backs stay there, and when Fabinho comes back, I want to see him back in midfield. And there's loads of lads in our WhatsApp group who think there's absolutely no chance that happens. As soon as Fabinho's back, he'll be played.
All right.
And we've seen that Klopp hasn't got the confidence to go with his centre backs. We've seen it at times this season, and I think it's really been ultimately over the long run. It's been to our detriment, because we haven't conceded a lot of goals. We haven't conceded a lot of chances. Where we've been lacking is the balance in midfield, moving in then into the front 3. And I think that's, we can win games 2-1, 3-1, 3-2 again if we get the midfield in the front 3 right.
Pete, you this time last year, you were championing Fabinho as a centre back. Are you going to admit now that it's the stupidest thing that you've ever come out with, given what we've lacked in midfield since we put him there?
Fabinho is our best centre back option. Nobody could have foreseen the billion injuries that we were going to get at this stage. I predicted it in the season predictions. I said Van Dijk was going to get. I think there's actually a text message in our pod group where I said Van Dijk's going to get a season ender after about 10 minutes into the season. It was a few games out, but I was right. it was inevitable that was going to happen. But anyway, go on. Sorry, what was it?
No, we can feel framer deny that text, Phil. Shut up.
I know. Yeah.
It's a different situation to the Jordan Henderson situation. Like I said, with Fabinho, you know that he can do both jobs, but you know equally what you miss as a midfield player. Jordan Henderson could do any job, but should he do 2 jobs? No, he shouldn't. So no, listen, we miss Fabinho, we miss Henderson being in there, and I think the main person that suffered the most is Thiago. At the moment, people are saying, is Thiago this, is Thiago that? We're not good enough for Thiago because we don't have the options of Henderson and Fabinho in there. Wijnaldum is a fantastic player, don't get me wrong, and he will be a big miss energy-wise. But really, the ideal pairing in there would have been Henderson and Fabinho to support and allow Thiago to do what he does. But
I'm not having that about Thiago, Peter. I'm not having it.
No, he is. Well, listen, I'm sorry.
Poor El Thiago needs 2 lads to give him a hug. No way.
I know that you. Hang on. I know that you disagree for a living, but let's be straight. Thiago Alcantara is a cut above everything that we've had in a long time. This is a different class of football player. It's criticised.
Cut above Suarez, Torres, and Steven Gerrard. No.
A footballer, yeah. As a centre forward and a street fighter, Suarez is a different game. Thiago Alcantara is one of the finest footballers we've had since the 1980s.
Thiago was one of my favourite footballers in the world, I have to say.
Hang on a second. I've watched and you've watched midfields with fucking Mascherano, going around kicking people, and different fellas that weren't good enough to wear the shirt. This fella is a cut above. He is struggling because at the moment we cannot accommodate the wrong word. We're not set up to deal with what he can bring, and I hope that something can click before the end of the season. I don't question a man like that. Don't question a player like that. And you shouldn't.
But again, Pete, your argument that Fabinho should play at centre back, right, takes away from what Thiago can bring to this squad, because at the moment he's trying to play 2 roles in the midfield, and I would argue that Thiago's style would be better if we converted him in the same way Guardiola has done with Gundogan, in that he played as a tempo setting midfielder in Germany at the bottom of the midfield with a defensive midfielder alongside him in a more of a 4-2-3-1, and now they've put him in as the top of their diamond and a midfield runner into the box, and suddenly he started scoring goals. Like, I think if you put Thiago at the top of the diamond and you have 2 functional lads, ideally you'd have Henderson and Wijnaldum alongside them there, and then put Fabinho at the base and play Thiago between Mane and Salah for those little threaded through balls, because teams are sitting deep. It means you don't have to rely on the fullbacks to be your attacking providers and your assist creators. You have like this fella. Well, it's as a false 10.
Is.
Neil, as a false 10.
Shut up, you prick.
Mm.
Fucking 10. Gas me bollocks.
But honestly, I think the guy has the vision and the ability on the ball to unlock what Mane and what Salah are brilliant do, which is playing off the
he'd open a can of beans.
But Neil, what he's brilliant, what the two boys are brilliant at is playing off the shoulders of centre backs. Right at the moment, they don't have somebody to play off the centres. They don't have somebody to do that. And what they're also missing is when Yaldum was doing it last year, and Henderson did it they used to do it in a tandem. That they attack the box. We've no midfield.
Yeah, Phil, have you not been listening? The lads are playing the centre half now.
No, I have, Neil, but that's because it's at the detriment of midfield. And every time we take away from the midfield to put into the centre back position, we're offsetting with a good part.
Yeah, but I thought I cleared this up earlier on. Our fullbacks are more important almost in the centre midfield. That's why the lads are playing the centre half. Like, if I have to say it again, I'm leaving.
Yeah, but that misses the point that teams know how to stop our fullbacks playing. And if our teams know how to stop their fullbacks playing, we have to find a different way to play.
This is very true. And I go back to it again. It's the arrogance of the manager. Like, I've been through this. I've been through all this. Fucking hell. Is no one fucking listening?
But Neil, who would you play at centre back for the rest of the season?
John Terry.
Or would you just put a load of numbers in and see what two numbers you come in? Put the squad numbers in, right?
You've just said we're not getting in the top four. We might even get into Europa League. Sure, put Manning in centre half. It doesn't fucking matter now. What's the point in you discussing? This is what we should do. That's what we should do. Yeah, but at the end of the day, we're fucked anyway. You're like one of them preppers who are prepping for the nuclear holocaust. When it comes to our fucked anyway. You're just going to ring when they go, the nuclear bomb. So, yeah, well, come here. You're fucked anyway, you dickhead with your stupid bunker. With your million cans of beans. Who would I play centre half? I would play a centre half at centre half. I agree with the two lads, yeah.
Yeah.
So someone could rub Thiago's back and make sure he's okay.
Lads, what does Davies have to do to get a run of the team? Does he have to wait until somebody else gets injured?
Has to stay fit. He's already played 400 odd consecutive games for Preston and gets injured within 2 weeks.
I'd get 400 odd consecutive games for Preston. me and Peter being centre half for Preston there, 400 odd consecutive games. And then we get a transfer to Liverpool because you get me for nothing.
I'd say you can't get a game for Preston. Hey.
Right, there's an Arsenal fan in the chat trying to give us abuse.
Arsenal. I mean, 2 words: Arsenal TV. 2 words: Arsenal TV.
Oh, Arsenal fans, they're just the best. You were relevant when Calvin Harris was just coming out. Anyway,
I suppose they're quite chuffed with holding City yesterday to a 1-0 defeat.
A 1-0. Moral victory for them.
Right. Anyway, what we're saying. So today, what's your solution? Playing Kabak and Phillips as much as we can.
Yeah, and if that's not working, then Davis. I don't want to see. Well, we haven't got the option of Firmino and Henderson anymore, unless they rush Firmino back. But no, I want to see centre backs and centre back at least for the next 4 games, and then see where we go from there. The thing about when Firmino was in at centre back and he was in that majestic run of form, he was playing next to one other centre back generally, and Henderson was generally in midfield as well. So you weren't losing both of them at the same time. I mean, Thiago wasn't even playing generally at that point. Thiago was out injured. He only makes his home debut, doesn't it? Like, he hasn't. I think he's played 4 home games and he hasn't won a home game in a Liverpool shirt.
He's like the anti-Mane. Remember Mane hadn't lost a game at Anfield until that Burnley match.
Hello, anti-Mane.
It's bananas. Like the fellas never tasted victory at Anfield.
It's bizarre. It's just bizarre to go from one end to the other. Come here to me. On that note, Neil, that everyone wants you to have the floor, so I'm going to let you have the floor. It must be. It's pure mental.
What do you want me to talk about?
Neil, well, your topic. Look, you can change the topic if you want, but I'm going to come back to you, and your topic is meant to be about VAR. VAR is the pits.
At the half we signed. Ibrahim VAR.
Ibrahim VAR. Yeah, but like you've an issue with VAR, and I suppose an awful lot of people had an issue with VAR at another issue with VAR or whatever it is at the weekend on the back of the penalty decision for Trent getting a knee in the back of the head. So go on, what you hate VAR, do you?
I haven't got an issue with VAR at all.
Go on. So why'd you put it down?
I said it firmly with tongue in cheek that it's all VAR's fault in anyways.
All right.
No ways. People crying, oh yeah, VAR this, VAR that. That's a lot of balls. If we were winning handsomely like we had been doing in the past, and we hadn't been trying to scrape fucking draws and wins, VAR wouldn't be a fucking issue. You know what I mean? VAR is only an issue when games are really, really tight and you're kind of struggling to get a fucking draw at Anfield. Then you get a bad decision with VAR. Then things only become relevant when the match is in a balance, and that's what tips the balance against you. Like VAR is VAR. Fuck VAR. VAR is the same for everybody. And crying about it isn't going to make it any better.
I think, in fairness to you, Neil, it was me that had to go in the group about VAR, so apologies. I just thought, listen, I'm like Neil. I'm not the WhatsApp group. I'm not one of these people that has a moan about VAR. The problem I have with it, though, is I don't think it's there purely to spot mistakes. I think it's there. It seems to be the way it's used, certainly by the Referees Association, is to make sure that they haven't done anything glaringly obvious that they have to actually overturn. Exactly, that they have to overturn the decision that they want to make. To be honest with you, it's almost like a foolproof that they can say, "I'm making that decision," and there's nothing glaringly obvious that means I have to kind of go the other way.
I have a bit of a conspiracy theory about VAR, actually.
Go on. I'm waiting. Yeah. I'm looking forward to this now. Conspiracy theory on VAR. Go on.
You know the way, like I said initially, that the whole spectacle of football when there was no fans there. I said this back in Project Restart. It's a bag of shit, yeah. And it's been exposed for the vacuous nature of it. I think VAR is just there to generate public opinion. Because without VAR, football is shit. There's nothing to talk about because it's a bag of balls. But if you bring VAR into it, loads of bad decisions, it's on the back pages every 5 minutes. You know what I mean? Think about it. Think about that and come back to me.
Right.
I know it's not a bad show, Peter. I'm all over it.
Right. We've talked many times about VAR. Anything you want to add? Because I've got a new one to go into my symbiosis of what I think of VAR and football chat is. But go on, I'll let you go first before I dip in.
Yeah, just to say the comments have lit up since Arsenal for Life come in. Like he's lit a fire underneath all of these lads and girls in the chat. It's unbelievable, some of the responses. VAR, I've absolutely grown to loathe it over the course of this season. I was in favour of it. I could see all the advantages of it, and I, in the early days, although you'd get frustrated at a scenario where you thought you'd scored but you hadn't scored, or vice versa, whichever way it was going, you always come back to the central argument of, well, they got the decision right. Okay, so you could always hang your hat on that, but what this season has proved increasingly so by the week is that VAR isn't getting the decisions right. It's consistently compounding a wrong decision, in my opinion. You're seeing a wrong decision and you're seeing either the referee or the VAR official or a combination of both somehow conspiring to double down on a wrong decision, which is completely baffling to me.
Do you know what's baffling to me? Why you can bring technology in, right, and then leave the interpretation of that technology up to a human being. It's the whole idea not to take human beings out of it. That's fucking mad.
And that's why goal line technology. That's why goal line technology was a breath of fresh air, because it was black and white, apart from that one game at Aston Villa where they forgot to switch it on. But black and white, it was no human intervention, all technology. And initially, it seemed it was kind of going along the same lines. The technology at first seemed to give the humans the ability to make the right decision, even though they got the initial decision wrong. But that's just gone completely out the window now. It's
surely the thing to do is to take human interpretation out of it completely and just let the computers decide, and then AI will take over and we're all fucked anyway. Can I just
jump in? Like, there's no issue with VAR in the Champions League. There's no issue with VAR in the Europa League. And it's very clear in terms of when they're set out, how it's used, and what it's used for, right? So that's why it's not happening. I have a very, very, very specific belief now on VAR usage in the Premier League and why it is the way it is. I thoroughly believe that the PGMOL are determined to undermine the technology and VAR as a system with piss poor decisions, right? So is that the Premier League stop using VAR and it goes back solely to the referee's decision on the pitch, which means they are questioned less. If you look deeply incompetent at being able to use the technology that's available and apply the rules, they'll remove the technology before they remove the institution. This is the English way at doing most things. They never question the institution. They question the tools of the institution. It's like when it comes to the health service, for example, right? It's always the doctors and the nurses that are questioned about their ability to deliver the health service, and never the people who run the health service. And it's the same in both countries. It's the same. It's always falls back on the institution. The institution will protect itself from being shown up to be incompetent and unable to use what's there for them to use, right? So going back to your point, Neil, if you take these penalty decisions, right, in the Champions League, there's the overriding thing is a clear and obvious error by the referee. So you know this Mane one. Remember the Mane where he flicked it back from behind the line and Firmino headed it in, and the goal wasn't given; it was given as a goal kick. And then there was 5 million pictures taken of look at that ball. It was it wasn't fully over the line. This was the same as the Oak. Missing the point.
Same as City game.
That in Europe, it has to be a clear and obvious error. So if you stare down the goalpost as a linesman, that ball looks over the line. The referee thought it was over the line. So there was no clear and obvious error. So in that instance, VAR's not going to step in and change the decision. Okay?
You do agree with me, there is a certain amount of corruption involved, regardless of what angle they are at.
I think it's not so. It's about the mentality of protecting the institution over the actual events,
which is corrupt.
That's very British. That's very British. That's very British. I think Phil, you're onto something. To be quite honest, I hadn't considered that. That's a very British
fucking
thing.
pie and mash, like eels and mash.
I would love I would love teams to be allowed to play three. I would love a team to be able to allow 3 trump cards in the course of a season where they can bring foreign officials in to ref and VAR the match, and see if there's a substantive uplift in the quality of the game being refed and the decisions being made. Because if it was, then none of the teams will go out. It's the Premier League. They will go out and they will say, we no longer want to use the PGMOL. We want a new body to come in to referee our games, and we're not happy to use this anymore.
They need an ombudsman.
They need competition, Neil. They need another body that can referee games, and then it will be based on ability and not based on a closed shop, which is the PGMOL.
Yeah, they need someone to oversee them that's not involved.
Those lads will be out
like
on the minute something like that happened. Those lads will be out on strike. Those English referees.
Fine, get rid of them. Would anybody miss them, Ray? Honestly, no,
absolutely not. No,
they're not good enough to ref at World Cups. They're not good enough to referee the late stages of the Champions League finals. They're not good enough to referee in European Nations Cup games in terms of what's going on. They're not good enough, and there's a reason for it. But they're good. But they protect themselves. They protect themselves beyond. They won't allow the mics to be mic'd up to let people hear what they're saying in terms of making those decisions. They won't let us hear what's going on when he's going over to review the video footage, and then they change their story. So if you take after that game at the weekend, we were told that the VAR, the guy Michael Oliver who was doing the VAR, said that he believed it wasn't a penalty, right, and that the referee overruled him on the pitch. He believed it was a penalty. Come Monday, Clattenburg, who's heading the PGMOL, says, no, we weren't looking at the decision at all.
What's the PGMOL?
It's the Professional
the Referees
Match Officials Association. It's the name of who, whatever it is. It's the referees. But they then changed the story to say, no, we weren't actually looking at the penalty decision. It was only if we're going to give a red card to Trent for being kneed in the back of the head or not.
Mad shit.
Right? And it's not the only thing. Look at Alfonso Areola literally almost breaks the Sheffield United player's leg and then takes the ball, right? No penalty. Mane gets grabbed by the leg in the Newcastle game, gets taken down, no penalty. Harry Maguire elbows a fella in front of the referee in the United match, right? last night against Newcastle, no penalty. And VAR doesn't even go back and change. It's just, if you have incompetent people doing the job over and over again, you will continue to get incompetent results. It doesn't matter what the rules are. And what they've done is they faffed the rules as well to try hide their incompetence. So when they change what's a handball, this short thing, that isn't in the group. That isn't the law of this game. This is an interpretation that the.
I thought that was like something on Waterford fucking whispers. That the short thing when I seen it. What?
The other element that I don't like is I would far prefer if you had a fella in Stockley Park, people in Stockley Park who were consistently in Stockley Park. I don't like this concept of referees who are on. Who referees who are on the pitch one game, yeah, and then talking to a lad where the following week the roles are kind of going to be reversed, because you got that dynamic of, well, you know, he's overruling me this week, and what's going to happen next? Like, I would prefer the person to be talking to someone on a more consistent basis who is constantly in front of the screens, rather than the fact that they're talking to a referee who's going to be actually on the pitch the following week or a few days later. Because I think there's an element of that where the protection for one another is definitely because of this dynamic of having this mixing it up.
What a show! I wouldn't let the ETLS watch my baby cam for me, let alone a VAR monitor.
Brilliant. But come here, so see, I think the fucking mindset is there, right? That they think they're going to be undermined by VAR rather than helped. Isn't that what it is? Yeah. So they're shitting themselves. I think that's a mindset, then. That's an insecurity. I think that's inherent. I think that's an ex-imperialism hangover. That's deep-seated. That's never going to be cured.
It's about, as Phil says, it's about protecting the institution, and they dare not say that they're wrong. You know, I mean, there's a.
We can't say too much about institutions here, Peter. You know, I mean, things aren't going great here with the institutions.
I've never
full of babies there down the country.
Yeah, I've never understood why they're not professional, for starters. I mean, why not make these guys full time?
They are.
I mean,
they are now. That's the worst part about it.
Are they full time?
Yeah,
even the lads in the Porta cabin there in Bletchley Park are fucking full time.
I think they're on something like 70 grand a year. Like, it's a full-time job.
Yeah,
my goodness.
On heroin.
And what about? I mean, Mark Halsey made a statement. What, six months ago, about what's really going on. This is a referee, was a top level referee for 10 or 15 years. Made a statement about he made a statement about gambling. Mark Halsey about gambling companies being in control of the decision making process, and the English just looked the other way.
Gambling companies.
Yeah, a lot of. I mean, I'm not going to.
There's a rumour now. That is fantastic.
Nobody seems to.
Andy Powers running Bletchley Park. I'm
just saying this now that we're deeper down in the whole of the conspiracy and the corruption of institutions that exist in England. We may as well go on to our last official topic, which is there an anti-LFC agenda out there? Now, Pete, this is what you threw in there.
There's any tinfoil here handy.
We are down in the I'm going to have to get a tinfoil helmet to put on the top now. Where are we going with this anti-LFC agenda? I'm looking forward to it.
You talked about earlier on circling wagons and institutions. I mean, at the top of the season, weren't Liverpool one of the ringleaders, one of 6 ringleaders, trying to put pressure on the Premier League with regards to the European breakaway? You know, the leadership of the Premier League are humans like anything else. They're not going to take that lying down. I mean, there's always going to be consequences for things like that. Just look at the numbers. A clear 11 overturns against Liverpool. They're clear of anyone for the whole of last season. They're clear of anyone. I mean, it's not just paranoia. It's not. I'm not one of these people who thinks, oh, conspiracy. I just think the game is the game. Things happen. But
get the cling film out and the rampant rabbit.
Honestly, though, I mean, you also
batteries.
If you don't think that there's any kind of agenda after what Liverpool did, rightly or wrongly, you know, leading the charge for this European Super League. If you don't think there's no bad feeling left around, and if you don't think it manifests by a little bit of let's show these lads and take them down a peg or two, I mean, I don't think that's tinfoil hat. For me, that's just logic. So there's an appetite out there to put Liverpool in that place. I'm sure they've done it to other clubs in the past, and they'll do it to other clubs in the future. But it just so happens that Liverpool have been on the wrong end of some. I mean, it's not even decisions. It's some of the things have just been laughable, to be honest with you, and it's consistently laughable. It's like lightning striking the same place in the same way 11 times in a row.
I know a fella that got hit by lightning twice.
I'm sure. I am sure.
Neilo,
Head now.
with your Adrian Edmondson head, come on. Well, do you think there's an anti-LFC agenda knocking about either the media circles in football circles?
Like I said, and Peter says I disagree for 11. I don't. I'm a very agreeable chap usually, but if you don't agree with me, you're a fucking idiot. No, sorry. Is there an anti-Liverpool agenda? Absolutely not. I don't agree with that for a minute. No. The way Jurgen Klopp has heightened the Premier League and brought this, I'd say the money they're getting from subscriptions to watch. But for the money that's coming in for subscriptions to watch Liverpool after what they did and how much of an media icon he is, I can't say that. No, there's not an agenda against Liverpool. There's not. It makes it seem there is because Liverpool is shit at the minute. But the agenda there against Liverpool is their shit. They set their own agenda there, and that's not. No. So I'm just gonna say no.
Just 11 or 12 coincidences. So.
No, but there's no. What, 11 or 12? What? Because we've had 11 or 12 bad decisions against us.
I mean, no, Neil, not.
But
bad
that decision is open to interpretation. But you're interpreting them as bad decisions because you're a Liverpool supporter.
Some of the stuff. I mean, listen, the latest and greatest. How can a player who, with his back off the end of a sliding channel, with his back to another player, possibly foul the guy running?
But come here. If I was to play devil's advocate, right, I could say he shouldn't have been in that position in the first place because the sliding tackle he went in for was silly.
So do you want to outlaw the sliding tackle like some people are talking about?
Did he impede a goal scoring opportunity? Yes, he did, because his head was in the way of a man's foot. You can foul someone with your head.
With his head, okay. He's the bravest. He's the bravest defender that I've ever seen. He's not. He's not. He's big scaredy pants.
I love rabbit holes.
What?
This is great. Ray,
no.
I
think there's an agenda against me though.
Ray, how many tinfoil helmets are you prepared to put on you tonight?
And how is your helmet?
Like pizza.
Just keep saying helmet.
Pizza and 6 tinfoil helmets over the colander. That's where he is at the moment, right?
Yeah.
What are you? What level? What level are you?
I don't do conspiracy theories, full stop. But
Here comes a boat.
What is starting to kind of stick out for me is that there's the very least some kind of unconscious bias, I think, towards to us in games from referees and from the VAR officials as well. Pete's right. It is no coincidence for me in that respect. Like whether you like it or don't, and you think it's a load of nonsense, when you look at the amount of decisions that have gone against us, key decisions, like it's building up. I think we are into double figures now. I can only really think of one decision that's kind of gone in our favour recently, and that was when Son scored for Spurs after 2 minutes, and we got into the real intricacies of whether he was offside or not, and we seemed to finally get a break in that game. But then, mind you, similarly in that game later on, didn't matter in the final outcome, but we get a very harsh disallowed goal when Firmino's adjudged to handle a ball. So as soon as we get a decision in our favour, we get a negative decision, which was far more subjective probably. So no, I think it's amazing. Like we seem to be the first in all kinds of scenarios. Like we seem to be the first for the ref. You think okay, a referee going to a screen means that something is going to be overturned. We seem to be the only ones when a referee goes to a screen that things don't get overturned. And it got so ridiculous this weekend to the point where he'd made his mind up before he even went over to the screen. Like you don't look at a screen for that length of time if you've already made your mind up as you're trotting over it that you're not going to change it, irrelevant of what's just coming.
He didn't look at the incident. Didn't look at the incident.
No, didn't let it. Like whenever a referee has gone over and looked at a decision like that, they have stood there and you've seen 4, 5, 6 replays. You've seen different angles. You're watching it as they're watching it, and you're starting to think, was it, wasn't it? He went over there. He'd made his decision. He wasn't going to overturn it. Whatever we'd see, whatever was coming on the screen, he stayed there the shortest amount of time possible. And I do think there's we just seem to be too consistently on the wrong end of these bad decisions. Like I was saying,
if we went as shit as we are, the decision wouldn't have mattered.
I get it. I get it. And we probably still would have lost the game 1-0, just as Klopp come out and admitted it. I think he answered it perfectly. But there have been times.
Oh, he will answer it perfectly in the interview. Don't worry about that. He'll be man of the match in the interview. When it comes to picking the team, he has an notion at the minute. But I tell you what, he gives a great interview.
There's plenty of
the Leicester
offside as well.
There's been plenty of instances where it's changed the momentum. Strange. Yeah, the Leicester offside. Where that line's drawn. And I mean, look, there's plenty of evidence out there that, and I don't even think it comes down to VAR. Like, we just seem to, when I watch games, other games, I just don't see the level of kind of, consistently bad decisions going against one team in a game.
Ray, you've just talked yourself into a conspiracy theory there.
Maybe I have, but I think it's more to do with an unconscious bias than anything else.
Lads, I don't think again, when you're losing, you go grasping for straws, right? You're looking for a life jacket, you're looking for a lifeboat everywhere to explain.
Again, I've just been through this. Twice I've said it now.
But hang on, you got to say it. I haven't got to say anything yet. So
you just say some different words.
I would be more inclined to have a conversation which is about the change of narrative that exists in the media that can subconsciously impact decisions going against teams. So when the likes of Project Superstar Big Picture European League comes out and we're positioned as the team that's driving this in England, right? Whether you take it or not, then people are going, look at these pricks, the PGMOL, look at these fuckers now trying to get rid of us, go off and create a Super League.
Especially with it coinciding with us being the champions as well. It's
and anything with super in the title is obviously evil.
There's a kind of we've just won a Champions
or a
League.
Hero.
Super weapon. No, I mean, that's bad. James Bond shit.
We've just won a Champions League. We've just won a league. We're at the peak of our powers. We've got ourselves out the shit after 30 years, and we're so arrogant to now be leading this charge because we're at the top again. We'd be guaranteeing our place at the top table. These things they have to take some kind of relevance in the background.
Yeah,
I know. So just hang on, because then I look at it and I say, right, what is the narrative? What's this season narrative? It's like everything. Last year there was such a favourable media narrative towards us. I always go back to when you get to the top of the pedestal, they all they've been waiting with their coconuts for the whole year to knock you off the top of it when you get there, right? And this has been like, it's ice cream on top of ice cream with Oreos and a bit of Kinder Bueno sauce and a bit of Nutella put on top of it, right? And then just to wrap it all up, they've dripped some hot caramel and hot chocolate across the ice cream, because you couldn't have got an easier target to set up than a team that's ended up being rancidly covered with injuries. His form has dropped off. The manager doesn't seem to have answers to what's going on. And all of a sudden, you've got all this Project Superstar restart. Let's go off, be super champions. We want 5 subs. This is terrible. We're not getting 5 subs. Oh, look, remember when Klopp go running up and down the line and shouting at the referees? He doesn't do that because the fans aren't there. You've got the likes of Carragher and Neville going, Klopp needs to do this. He needs to sign Connor Cody. No, he doesn't need to sign Connor Cody. He needs to now play 3 at the back. That's the team that has no centre backs. He's to play 3 at the back. Well done, lads. What are we going to do? Play the front three at the back? Yeah, that's really smart. That's why you're a failed Valencia manager, and that's why you're paid to talk about football and you've never managed a team in your life. So that's like, so when I look at what we're talking about, it's about them. I don't think there's a conspiracy, but I think there's an awful lot of things that can drive subconscious reasoning in things that happen that aren't necessarily intentional, but can, if there's a 50-50 decision, it can go and look at it. So then when you step away and you go into the Champions League, you don't see the inconsistency in decisions. You don't see the narratives that exist, because when teams, the European narrative that exists around Liverpool is that this is England's super team when it comes to winning European trophies. Our unique selling point as a football club is about winning European trophies. The English team that always wins European trophies, no matter how bad they are or where they are in their cycle as a team, they always compete in Europe and they always get up and they always end up in a European trophy. Like you look at it. So you take United. Ferguson was dominant for 25 years. In that time, he managed to get United to 5 European finals.
He won one, 2 of them.
And he won 2. We've been to 5 European finals since 2005.
We might get to one this season.
Roy Hodgson has been our manager at that stage. We've almost gone bankrupt. Brendan Rodgers was a manager at one point as well, and it was in his first big job. And Jurgen Klopp has been there. Jurgen Klopp so far has been responsible for taking us to 3 European finals in that time period.
Come here, that's unbelievable.
Right,
and I hear whispers today. Would do you stick with Jurgen Klopp? What the name of fucking Jesus is wrong with people?
It's not a credible question. Exactly.
No, I wouldn't even throw my own shite at them.
No, but this is where I go back to. So when you do, but those subconscious triggers can impact big decisions that go on in games, because they're, even without thinking, you're thinking we have to put this player in place. We had to put Klopp in place with all his roaring and his jumping and his shouting and all that was going on last year, because that was a narrative that's there. Oh, look at these fellas. Salah's always diving. Mane's diving, right?
Yeah,
that's there. It's buried in the back of the head. Whereas when they talk about Kane and they talk about Grealish, and they talk about Rashford, and they talk about, and even when they talk about Oxlade-Chamberlain and they talk about Henderson and they talk about all the English players, nobody's ever a diver. They're clever. They win amazing. They win penalties. They're doing the right thing.
That's deep seated in the culture. No, that's a different thing.
I know, but Neilo, it all feeds in. When your front 3 or your front 6 are non-English, every single one of them are divers and cheats, right? But when you've got a front 3 who has 2 English players, they're incredibly clever and they're brilliant players and they're coming through.
Yeah, but sure, Brian Robson never fell down. Let's go. You go back as far as when I first started watching football. Brian Robson wasn't a dirty player because he was England captain. He was a fucking animal.
Alan Shearer is the dirtiest player the Premier League has produced in 20 years. He's a filth bag, but he's a hard man hero. Dirt. He nearly put, I don't know who it was, he nearly put Robbie Savage in a wheelchair, but it's okay because he's hard. Alan Shearer, absolute disgusting player, but no, England captain.
We've seen the last couple of weeks, we've seen, fouls in key areas that weren't given. One against Mane last week that directly led to a goal for Leicester. And we've seen one this week on Salah again. He goes down and the immediate kind of, accusations about him diving again. It was a genuine foul. He just had to exaggerate in some respects.
Yeah, and he's been forced to exaggerate because he doesn't think he's going to get the decision anyway. So
exactly, yeah. So he's in a no-win situation at the moment.
He's in a lose-lose.
Okay, I want to move on. I've asked everyone for a topic, and I'm just going to go through and see if I can find something. No, can't find anything. No, I definitely can't find anything. Most of them are bought into having the conversation that we're having around us. And I suppose the only one that's popped up there, and probably to end on a good note, right? On the basis that we're struggling in the league, but we seem to continue to roll over the results in Europe, and we still have teams are still going to come and attack us, right? How do we rate our chances of going deep into the Champions League with even potentially getting to the final, given the teams that are left in the competition?
Who do you want to start with?
I'll go with Ray, because Ray was the first to say a word. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. I'll start with a very swampy comment. As long as we don't concede the first goal in the second leg. That'll be a good starting point. But I've got this funny feeling that Porto sneak through against Juventus and we draw them in the next round as per usual. Look, if we do get through and we get a kind draw, who knows? Then it really is game on. For me, it'll all come down to I think we will probably have to avoid Manchester City at least till the final anyway, until we get to a stage in the season where we've got more players that are available and it's a one-off game. And I think where potentially City could shit the bed because the prize is right in front of them and guess who stands in the way. I would love that scenario to play out, to be honest with you. So we have got a chance. I think the players will raise themselves now for the Champions League. I still think there's a kind of a deep-seated desire more so to win the Champions League than the league for the likes of Salah and Mane and even Firmino to a point now. They've won the league. I know they've won one Champions League, but they definitely, I would say, have more hunger for winning the Champions League. So I would say, I would have us somewhere around the, I don't know, third, fourth favourites for the competition now.
Okay. Peace.
We're going to the final, no doubt about it. And I tell you why. For me, the standard of Bayern Munich aside, the standard of European football is much lower than it was back in 2005. Italian teams were better. Spanish teams, in my opinion, maybe Bayern, Barcelona, were better. And more importantly, the standard of our football was much worse. And I think everything about us now is much better the way we're set up. I think we're going to the final. Not saying we're going to win it, but I think we're going to the final. And depending on who we get, well, let's see. But I think I absolutely agree with Ray. I think all the eggs psychologically are in that basket. And I disagree with Ray on one point. I think Manchester City will be desperate to avoid us. And I'll tell you why. Because there's nothing worse than facing a wounded animal. It's a free shot. We get Man City in the semi-final, for example, or the quarter-final. It's a free shot for us, and they'll know it.
All you do is disagree, Peter. Anyway, for fuck's sake.
It'll be like 2005. Let's face it, won't it? It'll be like getting Chelsea in that semi-final that season. No reason why Chelsea shouldn't have gone through to the final, but they shit the bed that on that particular occasion.
Yeah, and the thing about
Neilo, are you confident? Because I do want to do that topic.
Yeah, before I come into this chat, I was fairly confident about things, but I'm fairly depressed now. I'm not going to fucking lie to you. Now, to be honest with you, I think the attitude of other teams towards Liverpool in the Champions League won't be the same as it is in the Premier League, because the Liverpool are fallible in the Premier League, but I think they still have that kind of little bit of gold and a bit of a halo around them in Europe wide. So I think they might do all right, and I think Brexit could come into it. I'm going to leave it at that. Yeah.
I like that. I like it.
All right.
Well, the fact that we might have fans, we might have fans in our stadiums in England as a result of Boris definitely not rushing a reopening.
I'm not going, because all them vaccines they got are fake. They've too many of them.
Well, now there we go. And Neil, thanks for this, because it brings into our very, very last topic that I want to get into. So what's the best conspiracy theory you are absolutely convinced of being true? So I
have to think about that, boy.
I'm gonna go with my one. Neil, when I go with my one, I think you'll jump as well for this one. The Mandela effect.
I've told you I don't do conspiracy theories. Go on.
Well, right, you've gone on about them for the last 20 minutes, for fuck's sake.
There's not one conspiracy theory you believe to be true.
No, just don't buy into it. I take everything at face value.
I do. There's one for me. The Princess Diana was murdered. I completely. I think the powers that be couldn't stomach the idea that she was going to marry into an Egyptian family, an African family.
She's marrying a pharaoh.
And she was no, she was going to marry Muhammad Al Fayed's son, Dodi Fayed. And I think the Brits would have just turned their stomach. I think she was murdered.
Grant, Neilo.
I'll have to think about it, Phil.
Well, some of the lads are going on about the moon landings. I hate to break the news to them, but when the Chinese, who are no lovers of America, and the Indians and the Qataris sent probes up to the moon, they did locate the stuff that NASA had left on the moon, which sort of knocks they never got to the moon on the head. So they did.
The one that intrigues me more than anything, I watched them. I've watched a million documentaries about it down the years. Is whether it was really Lee Harvey Oswald who killed JFK. That's the one that intrigues me more than anything.
Oh, come here! Well, I'm all over that one. That was the mob. They clipped them.
Yeah,
or the Bush family.
Them and Bobby Kennedy. But the one for me that I'm completely convinced isn't the conspiracy.
Catholicism
is true. No. The religions exist as a way to control people. They don't think there's nothing to do with anything else.
Control the weak.
Yeah, and it's when religion stops being relevant, then we look at capitalism and globalism and what we have at the moment, materialism. That's why you have companies like Google and Amazon and all that type of stuff. People just look up to corporates now as the same way as they used to look up to religions, and they side themselves with Apple. Oh, I'm an Apple person. Oh, I'm not. I'm an Android person. Oh yeah. No, you're a fucking weirdo. And you've been taken over by the corporate mentality that humans just like to be enslaved. We're just a serf. Creature that needs to have somebody else. We need to be able to look up to somebody to say that somebody has control over us.
There's a fucking load of verbal diarrhea now. I've never had the likes of it.
Anyhow, the one for me is the Mandela effect. I remember them announcing that Nelson Mandela was dead.
That was me Mandela impression. I can't actually do it. I tried my best.
No, I remember Nelson Mandela his death being announced, and there's a load of other things, and it's known as the Mandela effect, where millions of people around the world have these false memories of things that actually happened, and it's meant to be that there could be proof that people can travel through time, have come back, and have changed events, and that's why suddenly those things that happened suddenly no longer happened.
Wow, that is such a crock of horse shit, Phil. I've never had the likes of it in my life.
No,
you can't remember shit that happens because humans have really bad fucking memories. Like I'm missing about 7 or 8 years.
Okay. How many people? Come here. I'll ask you this, Neil. How many people were in JFK's car when the assassination happened?
I wasn't there, Phil. I know 4 of them.
Okay. Right.
Holding on to it.
Sorry, 4.
No, there was not 2 guards on the back. Himself and his wife,
in the front,
and 2 in the front. I think there was 6.
Now, see, there you go. Pete's right. There were 6 people in the car. Everyone thinks there was only 4.
What does that have to do with fucking Anne?
It's the Mandela effect, Neil. It was only 4.
He was in prison at the time. The poor cunt was cracking rocks.
I'm just telling you, right? Then there was the what was the name of the Bears? The Bears.
Chicago
Bears.
No, not the Chicago Bears.
Teddy Bears.
There is a whole thing. Go on.
Like
I encourage anyone to go on and look up the Mandela effect and look at all the things that you thought happened that suddenly don't happen now. Right? Honestly, it's a whole load. What's the name of the Bears? Because then there were something the Bears. No, there was something Bears. And then what they were doing was they changed the
chlamydia spreading pigs.
Mandela effect, lads. We're living the Berenstain Bears. Thank you, everyone. The Berenstain Bears, right? They're now known as the Berenstain Bears, and I'm telling you now, when I grew up, it was the Berenstain Bears without 100%. And if you look up a picture of the Berenstain Bears, and
absolutely
when you
not
look at it, they're not Berenstain at all. It's an absolute joke shop. So the Mandela effect is real. It's not a conspiracy. It's real. And also, if Carl Twirly, if you were watching out there, if you can use Google Maps to see the Pentagon, so that knocks your 9/11 theory on the head. That's all I'm just saying. Right? That's going back about 6 years at this stage. So
I remember the sheep and I was involved in that one.
Yeah, there was goat herders in Afghan being trained as pilots, according to Carl Twirly. So lads, and this straight away, Building 7 on 9/11. I was waiting for this one to pop up. It's a valid one.
I hate all this shit.
I know.
I love it.
I really do. Like it's a load of bollocks. It's like it's a conversation for fucking mongos. You know what I mean? Do you know remember we used to be able to go to pubs years ago, yeah, and you kind of lean back in your chair because you're bored listening to your mouth, right? And you think, oh, jeez, I want to listen to what these lads are talking about. It might be a bit of crack. And there's 4 tits talking about conspiracy theories. Just go, yeah, remember taking a taxi? Fucking going home, getting a curry.
Berenstain Bears. No, the Berenstain Bears. I'm telling you. And it's not the Yogi Bears or the Gummy Bears. It's not the Chicago Bears. It's the Berenstain Bears.
Wanker Bears.
Some great Bears shouts there, though, to be fair.
There was some great shit.
And someone else has said, like, this is what losing to Everton has turned us into.
You know what I mean? Jer Cahill, the plandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not real. Yeah. So it's so that's been about it. Anyhow, the Bermuda Triangle, well, lads, the Bermuda Triangle is commonly caused by the way that
I tell you, I've just thought of one, yeah, and it's relevant.
Yeah.
The biggest conspiracy of all is football is for the masses and not just to sell us shit.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Yeah.
Why do we have television to sell us shit? That's all it's for.
That's a great one from Ant Wango there. He says the Mandela effect. Lads, what did Darth Vader say to Luke?
He said he was a Zelfla. Didn't he?
did say.
Yeah. No, he didn't. Honestly, the line that everyone thinks of.
It's not Luke, I'm your father.
Luke, I am your father. Never says
No,
that
he
line.
didn't say that. He just says, "Help me remove my mask." No.
No, we're talking about in The Empire Strikes Back when he's hanging out with the city in the sky and he chops Luke's hand off. Right? You killed my father! And he goes, no, Luke, I am your father. Never says that now. That's been taken out. It's been doctored and it's been removed and it would never happen, supposedly. That's a Berenstain Bears. So there you go. Right.
Jesus Christ.
There we go.
I hope somebody's recording this.
I know. Right. Neilo, Ray.
This is like we're like four lads in a home. Talking about shit. You know when they sit the mental people around the TV?
No, but
just
he's so matter of fact. That's the Berenstain Bears.
Yes, just
hell,
for everyone out there, Gav is now doing this, and everyone needs to get on to. We have a weekly newsletter that's out there. It's at getreview.co, profile LFC Daytrippers, and it covers off what shows on, and what's coming up, and who's on what shows and what we're doing. And it's definitely there, and you'll see all the stuff with the links to the Keen Strong and stuff like that in terms of who we're supporting. So definitely get on there, and it's been great in terms of the donations that have gone in from. I think he only needs 19k now to get to the total that they wanted to do, which is fantastic. I just want to say thanks to everyone again for watching tonight. Thanks for the comments. We love them. It definitely makes your night, especially when you see some of the stuff that's going on. I want to say personal thanks to all you out there. It definitely brightens up my week looking at all your pain that you go through. It's so better. So good to see it, how much you're suffering again.
This is like a Zoom call for the bewildered.
I know, yeah. I've been your host, Phil Casey. That's been Ray Dickinson. That's been Pete over there. And that's been Neilo just over there. The lads are up again for the midweek fix. There's something else going on Tuesday. There's something else going on Thursdays. And then there'll be something else going on Friday. Good night. God bless.